intentionally set, with one Oregon homeowner taking matters into her own hands when she found a guy on her property with matches. The woman demanded to know why he was there, and when she didn't like his answer, held him at gunpoint until cops arrived. By the way, he was not charged with arson, but with trespassing and an unrelated warrant. Meanwhile, more than 5 million acres have burned in the past 2 weeks, destroying thousands of homes and buildings, killing at least 34 people in 3 western states.
Fox's Rick Leventhal headed home from the hospital. One of 2 L.A. County Sheriff's deputies shot Saturday evening, still nursing wounds to his arm, hand, and forehead, but well enough to go home. Sheriff Villanueva says the deputy has a long road ahead to complete recovery. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
A public disparity Wednesday over the availability of a coronavirus vaccine.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Robert Redfield, told lawmakers it should be available to the general public sometime next summer.
If you're asking me when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life, I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter.
With Dr. Redfield emphasizing the importance of Americans wearing masks.
Fox's Mike Emanuel, but President Trump later suggesting that Dr. Redfield misspoke.
I think he made a mistake when he said that. It's just incorrect information. And I called him, and he didn't tell me that, and I think he got the message, maybe confused, maybe it was stated incorrectly. No, we're ready to go immediately as the vaccine is announced.
The president insisting a vaccine will be available as early as next month and ready for distribution as soon as the FDA gives its approval. The Senate Homeland Security Committee voting to subpoena several Obama administration officials about the FBI's Russia investigation, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, and former FBI Director James Comey. A huge estimated price tag from a summer of sometimes violent protests.
Looting, vandalism, and arson damage could cost insurance companies more than $1 billion, according to the Insurance Information Institute. The institute says the losses will rival the 1992 Los Angeles riot. The record-breaking number comes after a summer of rallies for racial justice and police reform.
Fox's Alex Hogan, a suburban Dallas police officer who shot and killed a woman last year while firing at a dog, has been charged with criminally negligent homicide. Officer Ravinder Singh was an officer in the Dallas suburb of Arlington. He resigned several weeks after the shooting. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox.
Time is running out. The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Call 645-2020 to respond before September 30. Our call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is your chance to influence the decisions made for the next 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
Off a day, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future. Whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community, our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby.
Open the Point app.
Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations, check out the visual radio. Get the free app, available on Google Play or go to thepoint.gu. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yes, sir. Right, Jose?
I concur.
All right. I start the program with a respectful reading of the Second Amendment every day. Gives you a tip-off what the program is about. It's about individual freedom, the United States Constitution, the rights of citizens, small government, conservatism, things like that. So if that's where your head is at, you're in the right place. If that's not where your head is at, you're really in the right place because you need to get your head on straight. I start the program every day with Zemi Ikotny. Which is my version of Meet the Press. And as my version of Meet the Press, Zemi Ikotny literally translated is press the meat. It's my backwards bilingual play on words. It means meet the press. So I start out by criticizing the Daily News roundly for never running local editorials, for running boilerplate from the USA Today and Gannett's News Service, today being no exception. They're running something called water inequality. The Daily News is all for water equality. Yeah. So I won't spend any more time on that. The Post every day runs a local editorial, and day in, day out, they're usually good editorials. Hard-hitting, edgy, pulling no punches, assigning accountability, a good punchline, and quite often a call to action. When I've finished evaluating both the editorials, I award the coveted Blue Star to the better of the two. Evaluating the Daily News editorial usually takes me about 10 seconds just to attribute it to Gannett News Service or USA Today instead of recognizing it as a real local editorial. So here's what the Post has to say today. Nearly $1 billion budget now official amid job losses and business closures. We have never seen anything like this. These, in parts, were the words of Ben Ferguson, general manager of the Pacific Island Club, which once had a thriving workforce of more than 700. Because of the pandemic and the resulting stagnancy of the tourist industry, the hotel will lay off 119 of its workers. Let me get my camera set up right there. PIC announced Tuesday around 500 of its labor force have been on furlough since March and were recalled to work only for a few weeks when the aircraft carrier U.S. Theodore Roosevelt sailors needed a temporary place to stay. The 2008 U.S. financial crisis and Japan's natural disaster in 2011 hit us hard, and resort occupancy went as low as 40%. But we've never seen anything like this, Ferguson said. He's been with the organization for more than 30 years. We are hopeful that tourism... Now, here's a guy who understands the English language. He said, we are hopeful that tourism will resume before the end of this year. He didn't say, hopefully. So good for you, Ben Ferguson. We are hopeful that tourism to Guam will resume before the end of the year. But we are also mindful of the reality that arrivals to Guam from our key source markets will take an extended period of time to recover to pre-pandemic levels. For as long as tourists are staying home and our residents are under stay-at-home orders, this scenario at PIC will repeat at other businesses across the island. Layoffs and furloughs have been occurring at many hotels on the island, across the restaurant industry and other businesses that don't deal strictly in everyday necessities. Guam used to get 1.5 million tourists a year. Now our tourism hubs have turned into ghost towns. Maybe that's why the 19th floor was so spooky. Yeah, most of the hotels had turned into ghost towns. I wonder if there's any truth to this rumor that a sequel to The Shining will be filmed on the 19th floor.
I was just thinking, what was the name of that hotel? Like Overlook? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Thank God it doesn't snow here on Guam.
Yeah, but I still think they could do a great job of doing a sequel right there on the 19th floor. In fact, it wouldn't even, it could be a documentary. It wouldn't even need to be fiction.
That's true.
All right. It doesn't take an industry insider like Ferguson to say that times have been tough. It's been tough and will be more challenging financially in the months, if not more than a year ahead, for consumers and business owners who have been struggling to keep people on their payroll. On the same day that PIC had to announce that its 700-strong workforce can no longer be sustained, the government of Guam's nearly $1 billion budget for fiscal 21 became law. The legislature's $950 million budget prevailed over the governor's, which was a little higher. Gov Guam somehow is still implementing a nearly $1 billion budget in an economy weighed down by near zero tourist arrivals, business closures, and job losses. Gov Guam has decided to let itself believe that cash flow will continue and that federal funds will help it stay afloat, so its budget projects its budget projects that it's business as usual. Government furloughs or layoffs are not part of the Gov Guam budget. There's not even a plan to issue furlough notices in case these become necessary. How is it possible that Gov Guam doesn't think it needs to shed jobs when payroll is the biggest expense? How is it that Gov Guam projects nearly the same level of tax collection when there are many more of our taxpayers, individuals or business alike, are struggling financially as jobs are lost and businesses are in a struggle for survival, if they haven't given up already? It's not the first time we've brought this up, but the devastating news of job losses at PIC and the finalization of a nearly $1 billion spending the same day offer a stark contrast. It tells us which side has eyes wide open and which side has put blinders on. I suppose that'll be the next fashion statement for members of the governor's cabinet. Blinders, with flowers and different kinds of decoration on them. Can you see? No, but if you can see me, I'll bet I look really snazzy in my new blinders.
That and fingers sticking out of their ears.
There you go. So let me give the blue star here to the Post. Well deserved. That makes 219 blue stars for the Post. The Daily News is still stuck at 57. Okay, let's turn now to the card. And on the card for today, I have BJ versus Ramon Topaznia. This is a repeat item, a repeat bout. But BJ really threw some bunches this time. BJ last time showed he was a pretty good boxer. He danced around and threw a left jab here and a left jab there. He held back on the uppercut. Didn't look like he was going for a knockout. Looked like he was trying to win on points. But today, BJ threw a haymaker. So that's the first item on the card. Then I've got Theseus Mendiola versus Tina. Therese and Ananich versus the Democrat Party. Yeah, now this goes to some endorsement by the Action Pack.
Oh, yeah.
And rather than, just go through the straight text, etc., I offer my own analysis, as is my usual custom, and frankly, one of the reasons that the fans like Tall Tales so much, because the Tall Tales approach is not to go straight to the obvious as though that is some kind of an analysis. So I'm going to give you the benefit of my analysis there. We've got Zuzu and other lawyers versus the Department of Public Health and Secret Services. This seems to be catching on. So this is a lawyer, what's her first name?
Rachel.
Rachel
Azuzu.
Rachel Taimano Azuzu. She brought the first suit against the Department of Public Health and Social Services, and as I am wont to say from time to time, the first olive is always the hardest one to get out of the jar. But once you get the first one out, the others come quite easily. So there are two other lawyers, though, that have climbed on Ms. Azuzu's bandwagon and are also, suing the Department of Public Health and Secret Services. Then I think I'm going to get to Gemma Manglona versus the people of Guam, and possibly Hawaii versus Gods and Arrows. So starting right out with BJ versus Ramon Topaznia. A little background here. The Board of Commissioners at Gura gave Mr. Topaznia a pretty substantial raise, like a 6% raise. And there was a public outcry almost immediately. Jim Moylan was so angry, he wrote a letter to the governor. That'll show him. And asked the governor to do an executive order, no more raises. And it hit the talk radio circuit, including this one. And the board of the Gura commissioners were roundly criticized for giving anybody a raise at this time when so many people are out of work and the economy is in such dire straits. Topaznia the next day came out and said, well, I did that. I had to take that the board had to do that because it was approved, it was due last January, and we're way behind, and the auditor recommended it. And then the next day, the auditor came out and said, no, I did not recommend it. If anything, I recommended against it. And that was a chat that he had with PNC. Yesterday, he was on the radio with another radio outlet.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And he being the public auditor. And this is the result of that chat. A man who tells lies with a straight face. That's how Public Auditor B.J. Cruz described Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority Director Ray Topaznia this morning on the link. I'm going to read that first sentence. A man who tells lies with a straight face. Well, let's stop and deconstruct that for a moment. If you're going to tell lies, probably better to do it with a straight face, right?
The more successful ones do.
Yes, you will be a much more successful liar. So if you anticipate a career as a liar, or perhaps a serial liar, you might go into the bathroom and practice in front of the mirror. Something like, look at the mirror and say, I always tell the truth. I never lie. I always tell the truth. Try to have that sober, serious look on your face so that if an observer from afar hadn't heard what you said, he would say, well, he's probably telling the truth. He looks like he's telling the truth. Lying with a straight face. So this article starts out, a man who tells lies with a straight face. That's how Public Auditor B.J. Cruz described Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority Director Ray Topaznia this morning on the link. I'm really appalled. I mean, really, seriously, Cruz sighed. I can't repeat it on the air, on public air. I guess he had even stronger words to say, perhaps making him a candidate for the Vince Akimoto Award had he spoke what was really on his mind, but he didn't. The public auditor was steaming Topaznia's statements on his pandemic pay raise. Topaznia told KUAM, I'm getting paid a lot of money because our agency is doing extremely well. Cruz begs to differ. If someone just takes time to read their audit, the audit does not speak well of the management. Cruz referenced GURA's portion of the Government of Guam financial audit release earlier this year. People don't understand the jeopardy that the agency placed the entire government of Guam in by the fact that its audit was still delayed, Cruz said. Cruz said Topaznia's interview on KUAM's link yesterday is in need of a major fact check. His lies yesterday were just unbelievable. Unfortunately for liars, that's quite often the case with lies. That lies are unbelievable.
Just the facts, ma'am.
Yeah. His lies yesterday were just unbelievable, and he's able to do it with a straight face. Well, maybe he should be in Hollywood then, you know. Maybe he's a really good actor.
Maybe he just got Botox that day.
That would hope. Maybe that would keep his, yeah, all right.
Helps a liar.
Mm-hmm. Cruz also said Topaznia lacks certifications and qualifications to justify his exorbitant salary, or almost $20,000 in raises he's received since being hired at GURA in January of last year. $20,000 worth of raises. And then BJ really takes the verbal gloves off. He says, for the political hacks that are brought in to take over the departments whenever the administration turns over, they had no previous certification, technical or professional experience, and that warranting the exorbitant salaries they're getting. So the administration turns over and political hacks are brought in. I have a feeling that BJ is not going to be on the governor's Christmas card list this year. Topaznia told KUAM he won't be getting his raise anytime soon. But Cruz said unless the board officially reverses its decision, the raises can move forward at any time. Here's a direct quote. They'll figure out some way when we're not looking to implement that. The only way to take care of that is for the board to meet and rescind it. Yeah. Some very frank talk from the public auditor. So how about it, Gura Commissioners? Are you going to call a meeting and rescind those 2 raises? We're going to be watching. Next item on the calendar is Thessius Mendiola versus Tina. And the title of this article that ran in the Post is Allow Us to Survive. Thessius Mendiola, 42, is worried about losing the small business that he and his wife worked hard to build over the last 3 years. The governor's order to shut down a wide range of businesses she deems non-essential to help control the spread of Wuhan virus is now also reaching the point of Mendiola's vape escape. Apparently he runs a vape store. I got to confess that I'm not a fan of this whole vape thing. As a reformed smoker, I quit smoking 45 years ago. So I feel like I kind of got bragging rights there when it comes to smoking. And I have a suspicion that vaping is even more dangerous than smoking cigarettes. It's something we really don't know that much about. So I'm not a fan of it. However, if it's legal, and if Mr. Thessius Mendiola has gone through the right licensing processes and pays his taxes, then he ought to be able to operate his business if we are really holding ourselves out as a free society. And when I went through the case by Judge Stickman from the Western District of Pennsylvania, I commented that, what the judge is actually saying is, yes, there is a pandemic, and it was proven up that there is a pandemic. And yes, in times of a pandemic, ordinary measures sometimes must be cast aside, and we must make some inroads on constitutional rights. But there's no rule of construction called the pandemic rule. That it's not strict scrutiny or intermediate scrutiny. It's the statutes would be construed based on a rational basis. So there isn't any. Yes, sir.
I'm raising my hand because I'm in class right now.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I have a question, though. And this might be a matter of semantics, but we have many pandemics occurring in the world right now.
Sure.
Would it be more proper to say during a health emergency instead of a pandemic? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because one is declared a health emergency, and a pandemic occurs because of infection, not because any government declared it.
I suppose that's correct, Jose. Yeah. I think to understand Judge Stickman's decision, again, go back to Jacobson versus Massachusetts, a 1905 case that stood for the proposition that all government officials had to do was say, hey, we're fighting this health emergency, or hey, we're fighting this pandemic. Therefore, we can really clamp down on a lot of the rights that our Constitution is supposed to protect. And Judge Stickman said, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. Governments can put special provisions in place to deal with the health emergency or the pandemic, but they have to do it right. And one part of doing it right is that it has to be the least restrictive means available to deal with the problem at hand. And two, it has to have some effect on the problem at hand. So in the case of Mr. Thesius here, I think it would be really hard to make an argument that shutting down the vape industry is going to have any impact at all on the Wuhan virus pandemic. And shutting down everybody in that industry, it's kind of like when there were one construction barracks turned out to be have some cases, we'll shut down the whole construction industry. That is not the least restrictive means available. So I suspect Mr. Mendiola falls into that same sort of category. I'm going to take a short break here. I'm not going to go outside and vape. And then we'll come back to Mr. Mendiola's vape store.
The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Respond by September 30, 2020 to help our island receive the federal funding it needs for essential services. We only receive this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Contact the call center at 645-2020 to complete your interview today. Together, we can make a difference.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So, you know, there has to be a narrow tailoring of the government's action and derogation of constitutional rights. It has to be the narrowest means available to achieve the objective of having some positive impact in dealing with the pandemic. He didn't mention it, but I suspect if counsel had made the argument to Judge Stickman, couldn't a governor or a mayor who has the proper statutory authority, couldn't he use the Red Queen approach when it comes to dealing with the pandemic and just, no matter what it is, just say, off with their heads and deal with everybody the same, punish everybody alike? As I think it was the Red Queen who also said the punishment first and then the verdict? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. So that doesn't work. And Mr. Thesius Mendiola here is telling his side of the story. And he goes on to say, allow us to survive. Open us up. The lockdown is not stopping the virus. Allow us to work and reopen our business with all the health and safety guidelines that we will follow. Miles away from Guam, a federal judge Monday ruled that Pennsylvania Governor's Wuhan virus orders, which closed non-essential businesses and limited gatherings, is unconstitutional. I believe it, Mendiola said. While Mendiola is not one to take the government of Guam to court, he hopes that local leaders will learn from the Pennsylvania court ruling and lift the business restrictions. Other small businesses on Guam, however, said they are following the Pennsylvania businesses' lead in seeking court action to strike down Governor Leon Guerrero's restrictions that include the massive closure of businesses. Jeff Pleadwell, owner of Pirates Cove, who has been vocal about his concerns about the restrictive executive orders, Wednesday said he and other businesses will be filing a lawsuit similar to that filed by the Pennsylvania businesses. Let's give Jeff a big hand. Pleadwell said they're meeting with an attorney about the plan. A statement from Adelup, when sought for comment on the Pennsylvania court ruling and whether it has implications for Guam, said, quote, "The governor has acted to save lives and prevent outright collapse of our healthcare system because of Wuhan virus. That's not only legal." Okay, here's a ruling. It's legal. It's her job. Courts have repeatedly recognized that emergency actions to combat a once-in-a-century global pandemic are necessary, and we believe the same would be true on Guam. The governor's special legal advisor, Crystal Paco San Augustine, said on Wednesday. No, that's not her. She's not a legal advisor. Crystal Paco San Augustine, formerly known as Crystal Paco, is the spokesperson for the governor. So, but she has ruled here. So, you know, it's the governor's job, and what the governor has done is legal. And if you have any doubts about that, I suppose when Jeff and his gang file suit, the governor will defend by having a statement by Crystal Paco San Augustine read into the record, and the judge will say, where's my gavel? Case dismissed. Yeah. Pleadwell said things are getting worse for businesses as the lockdowns and other restrictions linger. My worst days ever are now. We have reduced to 16 employees from 38 several weeks ago, Pleadwell said. The 58% workforce reduction was a result of GovGuam restrictions that permitted restaurants to open only curbside services. Before that, restaurants were limited to pick-up or to-go orders. When Pleadwell was allowed to open his dine-in restaurant, he was only permitted 50% occupancy despite the huge size and open-air concept of his restaurant. Now, if I were giving advice to the governor, I would say you cannot do a one-size-fit-all. Take this P-Core 1, P-Core 2, P-Core, and throw it in the toilet. That's no way to run a government. And instead of basing it on essential and non-essential, safety should be the watchword. So there are some business operations that run a much smaller risk of providing a place where the virus can be communicated than others. So movie theaters where everyone is sitting cheek by jowl, you know, maybe that would be one. But Jeff's place, always a breeze blowing through there. It's wide open. It's open to the air. There's all kinds of room. There's a lawn. It just doesn't make any sense that you treat him the same way that you would treat a restaurant on the fourth floor of a hotel.
We've also seen that the virus does not distinguish between essential or non-essential workers or items.
Yeah,
safety is the protocol, not the other way around.
Yeah, it's just completely backwards. So evaluation should be based in that respect. And there should be some means of relief for a businessman. How do I say that? Business person?
Them business people?
Yeah, them. For them, if they feel that they're mischaracterized, to get some relief. You know, some official who you could call and say, hey, look, you categorize me as, you know, this in this safety regard, and I have to do this, this, and this. Maybe you could take a look at my place and you'll see that I don't have to be that restrictive, that I don't have to make people park 100 yards from my restaurant so that I could go riding my bicycle down there to deliver a hamburger to them. That's the way it ought to be done, Governor. Hello. U.S. District Judge William Stickman IV, a Trump appointee, sided with the Pennsylvania plaintiffs that included hair salons, drive-in movie theaters, a farmer's market vendor, a horse trainer, and several Republican office holders in their lawsuit against Democrat Governor Tom Wolf and his health secretary. The Pennsylvania governor's efforts to slow the spread of coronavirus, Wuhan virus, were undertaken with good intention of addressing a public health emergency. But even in an emergency, the authority of government is not unfettered, the judge wrote. He said the Constitution cannot accept the concept of, quote, new normal when the basic liberties of the people can be subordinated to open-ended emergency mitigation measures. That's exactly what we have here. Open-ended, arbitrary, and capricious emergency mitigation efforts. For months, Guam small business owners have voiced their concern about what they believe is the unconstitutionality of the governor's executive orders. They also held peaceful protests. In his desperation to bring attention to the plight of small businesses, Mendiola wrote an open letter to the governor and senators on social media. I feel like nobody listens to a little person or a non-heavyweight and not a contributor to political campaigns. Any letter sent by mail, he said, would be ignored anyway. I worked hard for what I built. I am not a Calvo, Camacho, Gutierrez, Leon Guerrero, or Martinez.
Hey, wait a second.
Or any notable family, Mendiola wrote. You want to unhonk the horn there, Jose?
I can't undo that one.
I may lose everything because the government you control says, I'm not essential. I'm essential to my customers. Stop these useless shutdowns and let us be responsible small businesses. Unlike grocery stores, hardware stores, and banks with hundreds of people in them most times, Mendiola's small business that sells vape juice and gear gets visited by only up to 10 people in an hour, he said. They don't come all at once. I sanitize. I check temperatures. I follow social distance guidelines at my stores. Yet I am deemed more unsafe than the places allowed to open with hundreds of customers an hour. Classic case of what we're talking about. Yeah. Governor, what about this guy, Mr. Theseus Mendiola and his vape store? He complies with all of the rules, but you shut him down anyhow. Is there anything that you would like to say about him? Off with his head. The Guam Business Owners Coalition, co-founded by business as you were bar owner Thomas Pinehoff, also wrote to the legislature seeking help that could bring hope and safe jobs. The coalition's members filed government claims to ask to receive reimbursement for fixed costs. I covered that maybe 2 weeks ago. If the lockdown lingers longer, Mendiola hopes that GovGuam will put a freeze on rent for... No, you can't do that. He wants a freeze on rent for commercial properties that were not allowed to operate and provide landlords relief, lower the business privilege tax, and not charge for business license renewals, among other things. All good ideas except
the freeze,
the relief from rent. So the story goes on, and there's a list of how many businesses that have shut down and will never reopen. Chuck E. Cheese, Travel Pacificana, Paulino Electronic, as you were, Paulino Enterprise Communications, Ishii Brewing Company, Forever 21, Kitchen Lingo, Kadu, or as you were, Kadu, Tony Roma's at Agania Shopping Center, Fruits, Playport, Java Junction, and probably some that we don't even know about. So the title of this article here is Allow Us to Survive.
It seems like there's a disconnect, surprisingly, from someone who runs or who's a president of a banking institution, between lives and livelihood, as if they're not connected.
Really? So the title of the article, Allow Us to Survive, and Mr. Mendiola is saying, you know, it's touch and go because of the government, what you're doing, not because of the virus, but because of what you're doing. So he just wants to survive. And I couldn't help but, and they've also written letters to the members of the legislature looking for relief. The legislature could have ended this long ago because 8 members of the legislature could end the governor's magic powers and require her to come back and say, this is what I need, this is how I'm going to do it, and give her the authority that she really needs, not the authority that she wants. And I can't help but think, remember when Talina introduced a bill that would give the governor, would allow for a $4,000 fine for violation of any of the governor's executive orders? Oh, thank God they woke up in time on that one. So, you know, Mr. Mendiola is just saying, allow us to survive. And I'm reminded of what Tina Rose Munya Barnes said that I took, you know, it really got me by the heartstrings yesterday. And here's what she said. Could I have that? Here we go. Yeah. While many are out of jobs, having lost their income and their health insurance, we cannot take away an individual's fundamental right to live. We need to do better and at least give them a fighting chance. I forgot my Kleenex, Jose. Yeah, that's what Tina said yesterday. Very, very touching. And you'd think that anyone who could express sentiments like that would be out looking for Mr. Mendiola. Mr. Mendiola, we're going to introduce legislation to give you relief as fast as we can. But the interesting part of this story is that who Tina wasn't talking about the Thaddeus Mendiolas of the island. She was talking about people at the Department of Public Health and Secret Services who might be laid off. Big difference. Because this was all in the context of why she didn't go along with the veto. She didn't go along with the veto because we cannot take away an individual's right to live. If the individual is an employee at the Department of Public Health and Secret Services, we have to at least give them a fighting chance. Tina, what about Mr. Theseus Mendiola? Theseus, who? Who's he?
What does he do?
Don't know him. Don't know anything about him. What's his problem? Anyhow, I'm too busy working to save the jobs of the people at the Department of Public Health and Secret Services to pay any attention to some Mendiola guy. He's not a Leon Guerrero or a Calvo or Martinez or Manakulu, nay. Okay, let's take a short break.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific grows but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Hagåtña location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home. The 2020 Census of Guam will conclude its primary data collection phase on September 30th, 2020. Call 645-2020 today to complete your interview. Your responses will provide information local leaders need to distribute federal funding for our island's essential services. Call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Respond today, Guam, because together we can make a difference.
So there we are. Got about 8 more minutes until the big halftime show that you've all been waiting for. Next, I'm going to a daily news story here. Action PAC endorses 10 Republicans and 2 Democrats. And I put it on the calendar as Therese and John Ananich versus the Democrat Party. And I'll explain. Only 2 Democrats were endorsed. And this is what the PAC said. We're supporting candidates who support the initiative of the PAC. We will go out and continue this support through media and our social media, said Laura Dakane, the Action PAC executive director. The candidate endorsements were based on its core initiatives. Decreasing the size of the local government. Do you think that's something that the governor would like to see?
I don't think so.
No, she's done exactly the opposite. She's increased the size of the local government. Improving transparency in all levels of government? Nope. The first thing she did after she assumed her magic powers under Chapter 19 of Title 10 was gut the open government law. 3, supporting the military buildup.
Iffy.
Yeah.
Depends on our audience.
Yeah, depending on the audience and depending on who says what about whom, because she did point out that Guam is American soil, and I imagine that Finogi Chamorro took her to the woodshed on that one. But her endorsements of the military buildup are always followed by the word but. I support the military buildup, but this and that and the other thing and 17 other points and on and on and on, which are of such a nature that it causes you to doubt the clause that appears before the but. One who does support the military buildup would use the conjunction and not the word but. I support the military buildup, and I'm going to work with the military to make sure that military contractors pay Guam gross receipts tax and other fees, and I'm going to work with the military to see if we can have some concurrence on ecological and historical matters. But once you throw that word I'm going to work with the military, but everything that comes after the word but becomes the statement. Okay, next item is supporting a part-time legislature. Definitely not. Governor would be the last person on the island because she served in a full-time legislature, and you think you could get her to serve in a part-time legislature? Not very likely. And then finally, rolling back the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%. No way. No way, because we all know that she wants it to stay at 5% forever. So those are the 5 points that the action pack is looking for, and they sent out a question. The organization sent surveys, one for incumbents and one for contenders, to all senatorial candidates inquiring about their positions. The survey had an overall response rate of 50%. 73 of these responses from newcomers, 27% from incumbents. There were.
They're very comfortable, aren't they?
They are. The organization doesn't identify with a specific, as you were, the Democratic. Now here's the reason that this is put on the card as Teresa Nananich versus the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party last week criticized the organization's candidate survey process. While the Democrat Party of Guam believes in candidates that its candidates are capable of addressing substantive issues in honest and meaningful ways, it's apparent that Action PAC and its candidate survey are an instrument of for-profit special interests aimed at creating divisiveness in our community when we need to be focusing on coming together on the path to recovery. Well, okay, for-profit special interests. As soon as you say for-profit, you know these people are bad.
Evil.
Evil, yeah, because they're trying to make a profit off the backs of the little guy.
Mr. Mendiola, you're evil.
Yes, he wants to make a profit with his little vape business.
How dare you?
Yeah. And then, of course, this Action PAC is made up of 5 organizations. Each one of the organizations is a nonprofit, a non-taxable nonprofit, including Lou's own progeny, the Women's Chamber of Commerce.
That's why this is shocking.
Uh-huh. So the Democrat Party, then the Democrat Party goes on to say the survey itself is written in a leading manner, where the outcome appears to be predetermined by the way in which its questions are fashioned. Okay, let's take a short break, and I'll come back after a short break, a long break for the halftime, and I'll come back to the Democrat Party. See you then.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Assessing the damage. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. From the wrath of what was Hurricane Sally, which walloped the Gulf Coast between Mobile, Alabama and Pensacola, Florida on Wednesday, warnings of potentially historic flooding turned out to be no exaggeration.
Hurricane Sally howled ashore in the early hours of Wednesday morning near Gulf Shores, Alabama, bringing with it winds of 105 miles per hour, winds that extended miles along both the Alabama and Florida Panhandle coastlines. The storm tore trees from the ground, tossed boats from their moorings, ripped windows, walls, and roofing from buildings, and left hundreds of thousands of people in the dark without power.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt. The storm has killed at least one person. The mayor of Orange Beach, Alabama, says a man died. His wife is still missing. And the very busy tropical storm season continues. Hurricane Teddy expected to strengthen over the next several days. Currently forecast to hit Bermuda late Sunday night. Tropical storm Vicky has formed off the coast of Africa, and the National Hurricane Center says a tropical disturbance brewing off Mexico's eastern coastline now has a 70% chance of spinning up into a tropical storm before the weekend. A very public difference of opinion yesterday between President Trump and the director of the Centers for Disease Control over when a coronavirus vaccine will be available.
Dr. Robert Redfield told a Senate panel it won't be until the middle of next year that a COVID vaccine is available for most Americans, a timeline President Trump says is wrong.
But I don't think he means that. I don't think when he said it, I believe he was confused. I'm just telling you, we're ready to go as soon as the vaccine happens.
The administration has set a goal to have a vaccine developed and approved by the end of the year. President Trump has suggested it could be done as early as next month.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Democrat presidential nominee Joe Biden again questioning the safety of the vaccine, suggesting the administration is taking shortcuts.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont, or call 646-1463.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Still no arrests in the Saturday shooting of two California sheriff's deputies.
In Los Angeles, police ramping up their search for the shooter who opened fire on two deputies sitting in their car. No suspect has been identified. The male officer who was shot in the forehead, arm, and hand was released from the hospital, and the female deputy remains in the ICU. A GoFundMe has been created and has already raised more than $570,000 so far for their long road to recovery.
Fox's Alex Hogan, a controversial Florida sheriff's deputy who did not intervene in a mass school shooting, will get his job back.
One of the Broward County, Florida sheriff's deputies who chose not to enter the school building in the midst of a mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High will be permitted to resume work as a law enforcement officer and is entitled to back pay. An arbitrator rules Deputy John Stambaugh's firing more than 180 days after the incident came too late. It's not known how much back pay Stambaugh will be paid, but in 2018 he earned a six-figure salary. In Broward County, Florida, Eben Brown, Fox News.
The Federal Reserve says it expects to keep its benchmark interest rate near zero, at least through 2023, as it works to spark economic growth and drive down the unemployment rate. The Pentagon says 250 American service persons are being dispatched to help fight one of the California wildfires. Governor Gavin Newsom says they need the help.
We had a 24-hour period where 44,000 acres were burned in just a 24-hour period along the coast. Again, if you were ever in doubt about climate impacts as it relates to these forest fires, just consider in this asbestos forest that kind of fire activity.
At least 34 people have died in the wildfires in 3 western states. Smoke from the blazes now reaching as far as Eastern Europe. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Have you responded to the 2020 Census of Guam? If not, time is running out. Call 645-2020 before September 30 to make sure you and your family are counted in the 2020 census. Our call center hours are Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. We only get this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Big halftime show. The governor hasn't been able to shut down our halftime show yet. I suspect that she has a team working on that right now to try to shut down the halftime show at Tall Tales, perhaps plug up the muzzles of the cannons so that we can't have that barrage of cannon fire at the finale of the halftime show.
It's been certified essential, though.
I hope so. So coming back here to this item on the card, Therese and Ananich versus the Democrat Party. So the Democrat Party comes out and says the survey is written in a leading manner. A leading manner. In other words, the questions can be answered yes or no. It would be fairer if the questions were worded like this. Tell us what you think about the military buildup. But that's not what they're interested in. They want to know, do you favor it, yes or no? So a survey has to be leading. It's not an invitation to jabber. That's not what a survey is all about. So the Democrat questions here don't make a whole lot of sense. And of course, the incumbents would probably not, a lot of the incumbents wouldn't answer. Let's see, only 20, there was a 27% response rate from Democrats and 73% from Republicans. Well, most Democrat incumbents know that if they filled out the survey and told the truth, I don't think Ray Topaznia would be allowed to fill this one out. They're not going to get endorsed. So why bother? Because they don't want to roll back the GRT. They don't, obviously, the last thing in the world the incumbents would want would be a part-time legislature, except for Jim Moylan, who introduced a bill for a part-time legislature, which probably needs to be dusted off. more transparency. None of these points would appeal to most of the Democrats, but would have some appeal to the Republicans. And that's probably why very few Democrats answered them. That brings me back to the two Democrats that did answer, Therese Terlahi and John Ananich. Well, John Ananich is a challenger, and frankly, I don't give him very good odds of being elected. When I saw the name John Ananich, my question was, John who? Therese, of course, will be reelected with bells on. She'll probably be the top finisher like she was this last time. But if she got the endorsement of the action pack, that means that she has answered those questions in a manner that would be unsatisfactory to the governor. Also unsatisfactory to the Democrat Party. Also unsatisfactory to the Speaker of the Guam legislature. So are we seeing a foundation laid to San Nicolas Therese? Because Therese didn't answer the questions properly, we're not going to support her because she doesn't really believe in Democrat values. And then you've got the whole speaker thing, you know, in a legislature before this one in the 34th, when BJ resigned to run for public auditor, Therese had been the vice speaker, so she ratcheted up to be the speaker at the for the balance of that legislature. I think the popular sentiment was, well, probably if the Democrats get the majority, which they probably will, and Therese is going to be the speaker. And here's how the thought process went. Therese has been the acting speaker. She obviously knows what she's doing. She's been elected a couple times. She's done very well at the polls. She's very popular. She's been legislative counsel, and for numerous terms of the legislature, she understands how the legislature works. She's a lawyer. I don't know if that's a plus or a minus. So yeah, Therese would make a pretty good speaker. So when it comes time to choose the speaker, is Therese chosen? No. Tina is chosen. Tina Rose Munya Barnes. Was this an attempt to diss Therese? Did Therese Terlahi feel disrespected, as though her work on behalf of the party had been overlooked, to elect somebody who'd been thrown out of office once before as a member of the Wampat 10, perhaps the most discredited group of senators to ever serve in the legislature? So obviously it takes 8 people to elect a speaker. So 8 people decided that Tina would be a better speaker than Therese. There should have been some buyer's remorse after this last go-around over the budget. Because I commented yesterday that when a vote goes down 12-2 and the speaker is one of the two, this does not augur well for the speaker. The speaker being the titular head of her party, of their party, and that session of the legislature, ordinarily is able to provide a certain amount of leadership. She's not in charge of any senator. Every senator is in an equal footing with every other, but speakers ordinarily are able to exercise some control and leadership over their members. Well, Therese didn't. And if you were watching the sessions of the legislature, especially the override session, you'd say, yeah, there's a leader in that legislature. It ain't Tina Rose Munya Barnes. It's Therese Terlahi. Because I think if you were to hang the override on anybody's hat rack, you'd find it in Teresa's office because of the way she conducted herself, her floor debate, her presence, her command of the facts, etc. So the real leader there was Therese Terlahi. Now, there's an old saying, no good deed goes unpunished. So here she was standing up against the Speaker of the Legislature, overriding the governor's veto. Both of these are kind of taboos, especially overriding your own governor's veto. And showing herself to be a competent member of the body. I don't want to use the word envy here, but, it happens. So none of these performances, and then turning up with the endorsement from the Action PAC. When the Democrat leaderships look at so Therese is endorsed by the Action PAC. Well, good for her. I hope they'll give her a lot of support because we're not going to. Yeah, so that's why I title this Teresa Nananich versus the Democrat Party. Because as far as being a good yellow dog Democrat, and I don't know if I've explained that recently, but back in the day, there were two different kinds of Democrats. There were blue dog Democrats and yellow dog Democrats. Blue dog Democrats were, believe it or not, moderate Democrats. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, like dry water or clean dirt, cold fire. But blue dog Democrats had that name because the leader of the moderates had a picture of some dogs in his office. And the color scheme made the dogs look blue in that particular picture. As far as yellow dog Democrats, that yellow dog Democrat, that saying goes back a long, long time, and I don't know who's responsible for it, but it goes like this. Maybe when Jimmy was younger back in Missouri, you ask a young man from Missouri, are you a Democrat? Yeah, I reckon I am. I'd vote for a yellow dog if you were a Democrat. That's where the term comes from. So the yellow dog Democrats in the legislature, when they see Teresa's name being endorsed by the Action PAC.
Would that be blindly loyal and obedient? Kind of like old Yeller?
Yeah, well, I don't care, what he is or where he's been or what he's done, but I'd vote for a yellow dog if he were a Democrat. Yeah. So Therese is obviously not a yellow dog Democrat because she's not supporting the party.
She ain't yellow.
And she's not yellow. Yeah, she showed that during the debates on the override. She's not yellow. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what her relationship is to the Democrat Party. Now, judging from the success of Mike San Nicolas, perhaps the best thing that could happen to her would be to have the Democrat Party disown her. So, okay, so that's that. Now, I'm going to run down the list of people that there were 12, and I'm going to make some anecdotal comments on each of these people. And before the election, I will go through the entire list of 20, as you were 30, and make my perhaps a little bit more than anecdotal comments on each one. We start out with former Senator Tony Atta, a Republican. Well, here's the interesting thing about Tony Atta, a Republican. He was a member of the Juan Pat 10, the infamous Juan Pat 10. I've got a list here somewhere. Now, historically, this is what we're talking about with the Juan Pat 10. In the 32nd Guam legislature, on the 21st of November, near the end of the legislature, Acting Governor Ray Tenorio sent over a bill to increase senators' salaries by about $25,000 a year, retroactive back to the beginning of the legislature. There was also a pretty good raise for himself and the governor in there. And I guess this was, Ray took a little time away from his practice his quick draw practice at the pistol range in order to do this. But he sent it to the legislature, called the legislature into special session. They were in session for about an hour, very little debate. They passed that salary increase unanimously. Or no, I'm sorry, not unanimously. They passed it. They sent it back to the acting governor, who signed it the same day. And the money was in the senators' pockets before Christmas. And Judy Wonpat was the speaker. Judy Wonpat did not say, well, we've got this bill, we've got to have a public hearing now. She didn't even do a Tina. She just, when she called the session to order, they went straight to that bill, passed it, and adjourned. She didn't even do a Tina. She didn't even sign a certificate waiving the public hearing requirement because of danger to the health or safety. They just did it. And they took a lot of heat, so much heat, that in the next election, 7 senators, instead of being reelected, took a one-way ticket to Palookaville. And former Senator Tony Atta was one of those. In addition to those who actually voted for the increase, others distinguished themselves during the 33rd Guam legislature when Mike San Nicolas and 4 other senators that I nicknamed the San Nicolas Posse attempted to roll back those salary increases. And any senator, and 2 of the old WANPAT 10 were out, replaced by new members of the WANPAT 10 who wanted to hang on to those salary increases. So that became the new WANPAT 10. And that's Tony Atta was part of the original WANPAT 10, as was Tina Rose Munya Barnes. So I have a hard time thinking that Tony Atta is going to be a valuable member of the 36th Guam legislature unless he gives us a ironclad assurance that he understands that the WANPAT 10 salary increase was a travesty, and he can give us some assurance that that would never happen again, that he would fight it tooth and nail. Oh, in addition to what Tony Atta did, when he was running for lieutenant governor with Ray Tenorio, he came out and said, yes, what we did was the right thing. Even after he'd lost the election, the next election.
That's right.
He came back and said, yeah, that was the right thing. You know, we deserve that. So if he's an unreconstructed member of the WANPAT 10, Tony, I don't know what to tell you, but I would have a very difficult time imagining you in the 36th Guam legislature. Next item here, John Ananich. I've known some people named Ananich. I remember way back 40-some years ago, there was a cop named John Ananich. I suspect it's this fellow's father. But, and I've had the opportunity to shake and howdy with him, but I don't know a thing about him. I don't know what kind of a senator he would be, and he's a Democrat. So that's about all I can say about him. Michelle Armenta, former president of the Vigilance Committee, so I would assume that one of the things that one of the reasons that Michelle is running is because she wants to work on transparency within the government. And certainly there's a lot of necessity for that. Former Senator Frank Blas Jr. was not in the original WANPAT 10, but was in those who opposed the rollback right on down to the end. So he takes a little bit of the guilt of the Juan Pat 10. Next is Vincent Borja, a Republican. And when I look at this, I have only one question. This si Vincent Borja? What? Afabidanya? I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything that he's done. I don't know anything that he stands for. I wonder how he plans on being elected if no one knows who he is. Former police chief Joseph Cruz, Republican, also known as J.I. Cruz. When J.I. Cruz was the chief of police, there was a kerfuffle arising from police protection provided to the First Lady who went to England to escort her daughter home from college. She was accompanied by 2 police officers. And the bill for their travel and overtime was humongous, to say the least. So this became a pretty hot issue at the time. I've always maintained that there really is no reason for the governor to have any police protection at all. That it's a misuse of police officers. Police officers go through a police academy that trains them to be policemen. The laws of arrest, search, seizure, some training in self-defense, marksmanship, evocative driving, things like that. So they're trained as cops. They're not trained as chauffeurs, which is what the governor's security detail winds up doing a lot of. They're the governor's driver. In fact, the governor's driver was even at the poker party down in Humatak and was identified as such. Guam police officers received no training in executive security. And if they don't have training in it, all we're doing is we're wasting a resource. A police officer doing something he's not trained for instead of being out on the street arresting criminals. So I've never been in favor of that. I have a hard time figuring out what danger the governor and lieutenant governor of Guam are in at any given time. I would say that this is about as safe a community on earth there is to be, and as a public official, people love their public officials. You know, we've never had any kind of a feeling that anyone was in danger because they were public officials. So I sent a FOIA to the chief. Oh, and I left out a key part of the story. So Chief J.I. Cruz was interviewed about this matter of providing executive security. And he said, the law requires me to provide security to the governor and lieutenant governor and their spouses. Well, I didn't think that was correct. So I cheated. I went to the law books. Not there. So I sent a sunshine law request to the chief. Please provide all public records that show that you are required by law to provide executive security. Well, he writes back and says, you know, there's a provision in the sunshine law that says if the documents are hard to round up, et cetera, you can have an extra 10 days. So he said, I'm taking the extra 10 days. All he could find at the end of 10 days were some general orders. There is no law that requires the chief of police to provide executive security. And I don't think there ever has been. So we didn't have the Ray Topaznia Trophy at that time. But if we had had the Ray Topaznia Trophy, we could have awarded it to J.I. Cruz. And I wrote back to him and I said, you know, there's no such law. You might want to correct the record now. He never did.
Never did.
He never did. And I never forgot, J.I. Cruz.
Here's his chance.
And every time your name comes up until you correct the record, I'm going to put this back on the record. So until you do, I don't think that kind of approach to duty belongs in our Guam legislature. Okay, we got the seventh inning stretch coming up. Joe, I'm going to take a seventh inning stretch, and I'm going to come right back to another Joe.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Respond by September 30, 2020 to help our island receive the federal funding it needs for essential services. We only receive this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Contact the call center at 645-2020 to complete your interview today. Together, we can make a difference.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
So here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago. No game today. So I'm going to come right back here to the Action Pack endorsements. So I left off with J.I. Cruz, former police chief J.I. Cruz, who, although he may not make it into the legislature, will be nominated for the Ray Topaznia Prize. And we've got former Senator Chris Duenas. Chris was part of the WANPAT 10 and part of the second, was part of the WANPAT 10. He had lost that election, so he was a lame duck when he was part of the WANPAT 10. But Chris was on this program and came clean. He said, yeah, it was a mistake. And he said, if I learned one thing that I would never, ever do again, I would never go forward with a bill without seeking the input of the public. In other words, a public hearing. And he also said that if he's elected, he's going to go for part-time legislature, and he's going to amend the standing rules so that any senator would be able to reduce his own salary by simply submitting a memorandum. So I think Chris has come a long way towards living down his membership in the let's see, first or second WANPAT 10. Yeah, the first WANPAT 10.
Mea culpas are powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if you make a mistake, hey, look, I made a mistake. I learned from my mistake. I shouldn't have done it. I'll never do it again. Here's how I'm going to handle situations like that in the future. If however, you say something that's not true and you stick with it, then you're a candidate for the Ray Topaznia Prize. I'm going to go to another Joe, and then I've got Dr. McNinch on the line after that. Yes, sir, another Joe.
Uncle Bob, so I'm curious. The idea of a part-time legislature, is that in order to reduce salaries, or are there other reasons?
There are some really good reasons. Reducing salaries is one reason. broadening the pool of potential candidates, I think, is probably the best reason. Because there are a lot of people in our community who would make very good senators, but they're not going to give up their career, their jobs, their professions, or whatever to come over and serve in the legislature. And as you see, if the legislature turns out to be an occupation or a career in itself, is once you get in, where are you going to go afterwards? So by having a part-time legislature that met for limited periods of time, that was properly staffed, which this one isn't, then we could expand the pool of people who would serve in the legislature to our benefit. If a third reason is that if we were to enact the bill that Jim Moylan introduced, we would have a real professional legislature. You know, the way the legislature works is this: for a committee, for an individual senator can hire anybody he feels like and pay that person as much as he wants to. We put a stop to this, but once upon a time there was a senator who failed for re-election, and between November and the end of the term, he paid one of his staffers $60,000. Yeah, we changed that by law. But you can hire anyone you want, as many as you want, pay them as much as you want. When Lulian Guerrero was a senator in the 27th Guam legislature, she had 12 staffers. She had so many staffers that she didn't have enough room for them in her office, so she farmed 2 of them out to village mayors.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember trying to visit her office once or twice back when she was a senator, and didn't get a lot of attention. So
that's another reason. Then, as far as the staff, the people that don't work for senators, the way it works is this: that there are, the positions are sorted out and named, and then they're written on a piece of paper and they're thrown into a hat, and every senator draws a couple slips out of the hat. And if you draw legislative secretary, you get to determine who's going to go to work in that office. This is a terrible way to run something. It makes it very difficult for the person in charge of the office, because the person that's supposed to be supervised looks to somebody else for the job, and it's a horrible system without going into any more of the details. If Jim Moylan's bill were enacted, there would be a classified staff at the legislature that would stay there, one legislature to the next. They would hire enough lawyers to do the work. So those are a couple of the advantages, and it would not cost as much money. We're spending $8 million on something that we could do for 2.5. Another, Joe?
Well, of course, that would have to go to public hearing as well, right? Any bill put forward?
Unless Tina decides that there's an emergency dealing with the public health or safety and would waive the requirement.
Oh, I see. Any speaker could waive public hearings, and therefore people would not have an input to whether or not they would have entertain the bill for.
It works. It's working backwards. The bill will not get on the floor. It won't even have a public hearing until the committee chairman that has jurisdiction over that area puts it on for public hearing. That's why it hasn't had a public hearing, because the last thing in the world that the people in the legislature right now would want is a part-time legislature.
So it should go to public hearing, right?
Well, of course, any bill that is introduced ought to go to a public hearing. But, do you think any one of them, except for Jim Moylan, is looking for a part-time legislator? You think Tina Rose Munya Barnes would like to be the speaker? No.
Uncle Bob, I got one more question for you.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the video of the Action PAC in court, the new political action committee?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? I went to go look at it. and while I was on live, there were comments. I noticed one of the ladies was, I think, Mrs. Perry. So I went to go back and look to see if she had any other comments, because I know she's one of the pro-lifers.
Uh-huh.
In any case, I went back and there were no comments. I'm like, are there supposed to be comments? Is there some editing function that the person who puts something on Facebook, are they able to edit that?
I probably know less about Facebook than just about anybody you know, another Joe. I have a Facebook account here because I need it for what I'm doing on the show, but other than that, I just say no to Facebook.
You guys, and on the point, you know, the Ray Gibson Show and Tall Tales, your videos show the comments.
Right.
Right. So you would think that you would go to the video online for the action pack in Corp, and you would think that you would be able to see the comments, but you can't. So I was curious if that seemed unusual to you.
Facebook seems unusual to me, another Joe. Next question.
Well, I hope they. This is more a comment. I hope they eventually, sooner rather than later, put up the comments because they're talking about comments on the video, but you see no comments. So anyway, Uncle Bob, I'm hoping
my final word on Facebook and what you're just talking about. Are you ready for this, another Joe?
Sure.
Here's my statement. No comment.
No comment. Oh my gosh! I just walked right into that one. I hope they're pro-life, Uncle Bob. The action pack. Do you think they're pro-life?
Well, that's not one of the 5 things that they've listed, so...
Oh, no. Maybe they should add it. Maybe it should be number 6.
Well, remember, they're a business group, and I suppose business folks are going to say social issues like that are important, but they're not the talisman that we're looking for.
I also noticed they didn't have anything to say about the Wuhan virus, Corona-19 virus.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they say something about the Wuhan virus in their questions?
Well, it's a free country, and they've asked us about things that they think are important. So.
You're right. Yeah, come on. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I'll just keep listening.
Okay. So it's just about time for the home stretch. So I think we'll take Ron McNinch down the home stretch.
No, we already did the home stretch.
We did?
Oh, wait. The other home stretch. Got it.
Yeah, we did.
I'm thinking home field.
Yeah, we did the 7th inning stretch, but we haven't done the home stretch. So
let's go to that.
Kind of stretching it out here a little bit, Jose. And then I'll get to you, Ron.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon, or call 646-1463.
The 2020 Census of Guam will conclude its primary data collection phase on September 30th, 2020. Call 645-2020 today to complete your interview. Your responses will provide information local leaders need to distribute federal funding for our island's essential services. Call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Respond today, Guam, because together we can make a difference.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
There we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch of tall tales. And I'm going to ask Ron McNinch to mount a stallion and ride down the home stretch with me. And we're going to get a little help from Frenchie. Frenchie's in the green room wanting to get in on the home stretch also, Ron.
Half a day, Senator. Half a day, Guam. Half a day, Senator.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were on. Okay, thank you. So I was listening to your conversation about the part-time legislature, and I've got to say, and I want to be careful to make sure I'm going to make the point here. I don't like a part-time legislature, but I do believe that we could have a part-time legislature if we simply cut the senators' pay. And I think New Hampshire, they pay their legislators $200 flat, no per diem for the entire 2-year term. So in New Hampshire, it's an honor and a privilege. It's a civic duty to be a legislator, and they go in, they do their legislation, and then they're out because that is, they don't quit their day jobs. And so if the pay is sufficiently low, they're going to have to be part-time because they won't be able to waste their time on anything. I estimated one time most state legislatures in the United States are part-time, and most meet for under 40 days a year, unless the governor calls them into a special session for some reason. And for the most part, and that's how most state legislatures operate. But in fact, it's really funny. Some state legislatures only meet every other year. I think it's Montana or one of the western states in the far west. They don't even meet every year because there's not that much for them to do because everything's established, everything's well settled. So I'm more of a fan of simply lowering their pay rather than saying we're going to go part-time. And the reason is with the part-time legislature, the devil is in the details. And there's a part of the Organic Act that says they get to set the place and time of their meetings and all that kind of stuff. But
there isn't, Ron. Sorry. The Organic Act says when the first meeting should be unless changed by local law. So you and I are talking about the same thing, but to dismiss the details based on the devil being there, I think is short-sighted, because if you were to examine these other legislatures where service is an honor and the salary is not an incentive, the structure is well established. So to just say we're going to cut the salaries of senators, in Jim Moylan's bill, it's $100 per session, 60 sessions per year. If you did that and nothing more, you could wind up with a really chaotic situation, because in order for a legislature to properly function, the details have to be very well thought out and be in place so that when senators report for a session, all they're doing is legislating. They're not doing a lot of ash and trash and housekeeping and things like that. Other than that, I think you and I are saying about the same thing.
Yeah, I think we substantially agree on this whole point. I think that it's just mainly the real issue is, I think nothing short of the public voting it in would do it. I mean, I think it's going to, because they won't do it themselves, of course. I mean, there's simply no way. They're too fixated on this being their full-time profession and job, and that's unfortunate in a lot of ways.
Well, I think the only way that it can happen is that it becomes an issue, and becomes an issue long enough to move the Overton window to the point where senators will see that their ability to have any function in the government is to support a part-time legislature. So we've started on that. With respect to the public voting on it, the legislature has made the initiative and referendum thing so complicated as to almost make it a nullity. So I got to give Jim Moylan credit for starting the ball rolling, and he's got this action pack group on it. If it doesn't, it's not going to work this time. But when the electorate realizes that most of the people of the labor force is not in the government of Guam workforce. There are 3 times as many in the private sector as in the government, and that this elaborate GovGuam structure benefits a small number of people dramatically, then I think we might see a sort of a populist revolution that would embrace a part-time legislature, and that the people in the part-time legislature would not be professional politicians.
So I think that those are really good points. I think that, I would like to see, basically more people being more aware of this issue, because I calculated one time, I went through every single bill, and I think I found about 15 days of genuine legislating they did one year. And I went through every single bit of substantive business that they did, the stuff that really matters, not the resolutions and not all the other things. I think I came up with about a 15-year. They could do it in a 15-day extended 2-week time frame, the entire legislation for the year.
I agree, and the reason that Jim's bill has 2 30-day sessions is that's where we started, and we operated that way until 1970, 2 30-day sessions, and it worked better than what we've got now.
Yeah, and also it makes people more focused. They have a policy window to work off of. They can become more determined, more structured. One of the issues that we have on Guam is we have the same temperature every day, so it feels like the same day every day, so there's no focus on anything. And so having a time focus probably would certainly help also.
Agreed.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you so much, sir, and I know you have other callers.
Okay, good talking to you, Ron. So long.
Thank you, sir. All right, goodbye.
And now, by popular demand, we've got Frenchie on the line. Good afternoon, Frenchie. No Frenchie?
I think the call dropped.
Oh.
I want to call back in there, Frenchie.
Yeah, your call dropped, Frenchie. If you can call back. I see the light lighting up. That's Frenchie. Hey, good afternoon, Frenchie.
Yeah, somebody hung up on me. So anyhow, how are you?
I'm doing great, Frenchie.
Yeah. Let's see. You were going through the list of candidates earlier, I guess.
I was.
And you said you didn't know much about Vince Borja, who is running as a Republican, a first-time candidate, I guess.
I didn't say that I don't know much about him. I said I don't know anything about him.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll help you with it a little bit.
All right.
So apparently he's not that bad of a guy, because he used to be a Democrat and now he's a Republican. So he must have had an experience of the road to Damascus kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And his last job, he was teaching at UOG, but he's a vet. I know he was in the Air Force, so for you, that's not really the armed forces. But he was in the Air Force, and he was deployed in the Middle East a couple of times. So, and then now he was teaching, I think, business at UOG. One thing that kind of struck me about him is that when he announced that he was going to run for senator, the whole pro-independence cabal at UOG rushed to the president's office to ask that he resign from his job. And part of the signatories on that were preferred Senator Kelly Marsh, Titano, and Mr. Bevacqua, and all those people. They really made a mess out of this thing, and he was gonna resign, or at least take a leave of absence, but they made such a mess that he was running as a Republican that he was forced to resign his job in order to run. So he's already paid quite a price economically.
Well, I'm beginning to like him already. If
Yeah, I know. I know. Just for the who are his enemies, it's already quite interesting. It makes him more likable. I would say he's still very young. I think he's in his mid to late 30s. He's a young father, just got married. So, interesting young man. A little bit on the shy side, which is kind of a problem when you go in politics. But I guess he's just trying to get his feet wet. And he's running a campaign mainly online and with his family, who are all Democrats, but who are helping him. So it's interesting. Interesting guy. So I thought I would put my 2 cents on that. I met with him a couple of times back in March before all the pandemic went on.
2 cents or 2 francs, Frenchie? 2
francs are not worth much nowadays, except if they are Swiss francs.
Okay.
The Swiss franc is stronger than the dollar. So that being said, I've been watching with kind of a lot of irritation all the thing with the pandemic and us being forced to stay home and all those things. And frankly, since March, this government has not done much. The medical council has not done much either, and I don't mind Dr. Nguyen and Akimoto, but I think they're all over the board. They want to be part of the board at the same time they want to be the critics, and then nowadays they're kind of the rubber stampers. So I'm a little disappointed by that. I've talked with several friends that are physicians, and they're basically saying the medical board doesn't help, and DPHS is the one running the thing, and at the same time, all the people that were blaming the others are all retiring and leaving us high and dry in the middle of a pandemic. So if they had any kind of ethics, they would wait till the pandemic is over before retiring, but they don't do that. They just see that it's going to be a bad situation, and they're jumping ship. And that's very irritating, and then they're leaving the people behind them hanging high and dry, and it's very frustrating when you want to hear about the first responders and everything, and those are supposed to be the leaders, and they are not doing anything, I think, except passing the buck, letting the governor being totally ineffective, inefficient, inept, everything you want to be. But it's very frustrating that basically 6 months into this thing, they don't have a plan except keeping us locked up.
Yeah.
And they haven't thought about anything.
I think their plan is that Tina kind of crosses her legs, and then one of the doctors from the physician's advisory group comes along with one of those little hammers and taps her knee, and if her foot flies forward, she says, "Go to PCOR 1." Kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, but I'm afraid
based on advice from
a very hard time crossing her legs anyway. And I don't care if the women's Chamber of Commerce goes after me. They can go fry an egg on that one.
And the Bureau of Not Hurting Women's Feelings might get on you too, Frenchie.
Dubois.
I'm an old misogynist. I don't care.
Whoa. What a finale for Tall Tales today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You really
taking the things out of the fire.
Thank you very much, Francis. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Bob. Take care.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. HD3.